Good evening. Welcome to the Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's Big Stories. The Justice Department says there will be no sacred cows in the investigation into former President Duterte's war on drugs off the back of the bombshell revelations of Regina Garma.
Human rights lawyers push for Garma's testimony to be submitted to the International Criminal Court for their case buildup. But Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin says there will be no rejoining the ICC under the Marcos administration.
And Filipinos who identify with the Marcoses inch up in Octa Research's latest survey, while the Pro-Dutertes slid down. We'll be speaking to Senator Amy Marcos about this later on.
No sacred cows in this institution. This was the strong statement made by newly appointed Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla on the alleged involvement of some police officials and officers in the supposed extrajudicial killings related to the bloody drug war by the previous administration.
Remulla says that some drug war cases are now being reopened after the expose of retired police colonel and former PCSO General Manager Regina Garma.
For their part, PNP Chief General Romel Marbil has called on his predecessors to come clean on their roles during the previous administration's war on drugs. Brian Castillo with a big story.
No one will be spared in the widespread investigation into former President Duterte's controversial war on drugs. This was the assurance of new Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla, which comes after the shocking expose by retired police colonel and former PCSO General Manager Regina Garma about the alleged reward system the previous administration employed. The crux of Garma's testimony was that Duterte had wanted to replicate the so-called Davao model nationwide. She said it was National Police Commission or NAPOLCOM Commissioner Edelberto Leonardo who was tasked to carry out the plan. According to Secretary John Vic Remulla, the DILG and the PNP are taking Garma's allegations seriously.
There are no sacred cows in this institution and in this investigation. Anyone who is guilty, anyone who is found guilty, anyone will be treated like any other person or treated of such. Okay, they will be accorded no special treatment. They will be accorded no special privileges. Everyone will face the full consequence of the law.
But Remulla also says they will wait for the House Squad Committee hearings to conclude before taking appropriate action.
Any testimony given in Congress is done under oath, so that takes the form already of a direct testimony and can be used by the police as an initial point of investigation and to file charges. But we must caution you that we will wait till the final report is over before all actions are done. They are innocent until proven guilty, so we must not judge them already according to testimony. They have to go through the process.
However, due to the gravity of Garma's testimony, Remulla says he will reopen long-delayed cases of extrajudicial killings involving police officers.
With their testimony, some of the cold cases will be opened. But again, let us wait till the final hearings and final recommendations of Quadcom are done, and then subsequent actions will be taken. We have to wait till the full revelations are announced. I think pretty soon there will be corroborative testimonies that will abound.
PNP Chief Police General Romel Marbil also urged former PNP chiefs to come clean about their roles in the Duterte administration's war on drugs. That's after Garma, at the hearing on Friday, released a diagram showing the alleged flow of money and communication for the supposed reward system at that time.
Sabi na kasi ni Colonel Garma na former chiefs are being informed regarding dun sa war on drugs. So we have to take their statements and say something about it para we know where we start dun sa investigation po natin.
Former PNP Chief Guillermo Eleazar, for one, has stepped forward to try to clear his name. In a statement, he says he is confident that he neither underwent a briefing nor took any instruction from anybody about a reward system in the conduct of the anti-illegal drug operations. Eleazar also emphasized that the only directive he received from President Duterte was to, quote, do what is right and legal. For the DOJ's part, Undersecretary Raul Vasquez stated that they will only conduct a preliminary investigation and case build-up once the House refers their committee report and collected affidavits or if a complaint is filed. For News 5, Brian Castillo. We are One News.
Other Duterte men who were directly implicated by Regina Garma were Senators Bongo and Bato de la Rosa, both of whom vehemently denied it. Go says his work involved sorting out Duterte's calendar and that he had nothing to do with the controversial anti-narcotics campaign.
Wala pong reward system na sinasabi nila ngayon. Masyado pong baseless accusation po ito. Yung operations ng war on drugs, wala po akong kinalaman at hindi ko po mandato yan. Ang trabaho ko noon, nasa executive order, engagement ng presidente. Hindi naman po maiwasan na ako yung tinatawag parati ng presidente. Halika rito, i-arrange mo mga meetings. Pero hindi po sa operations ng war on drugs.
Go also says he is willing to face the investigation in the House of Representatives if needed. His legal team is studying whether they will file a case against Garma. The senator also lamented the fact that all those who are now accusing them were in fact once supporters of the drug war.
Lahat ng SONA 2016 up to 2021, 6 na SONA. Tuwing binabanggit ni dating Pangulong Duterte ang war on drugs, nagpapalakpakan po ang lahat. Standing ovation po ang Kongreso at ang Senado. Tapos ngayon, mag-isa na lang siya, puro sisi pang inabot.
But what came as a surprise to many people was Go saying that he's also willing to kickstart a parallel investigation into the drug war, this time in Senate.
Kung kakailanganin po para magkaroon tayo ng parallel investigation dito sa Senado para malaman po natin ng katotohanan, I'm very much willing na mag-file din po ng resolution para magkaroon po ng investigation rin po dito sa Senado. Kung gusto niyo imbestigahan yung war on drugs, pwede nating pakinggan dito. Lalong-lalo na ang ating chairperson, si Senator Bato, is the chairperson of the Committee on Peace and Order. At siya po ay Chief PNP para malaman natin kung ano talagang totoo at ano po yung naidudulot nito at tulong nito sa ating mga kababayan.
As for Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, who was the first PNP chief during the Duterte administration, he likewise denied that he knew of the supposed reward system. In a statement, Senator Bato said, "I did not engage in a reward system because I had no funds for that. The only reward system in the PNP is the DILG-approved list of most wanted persons."
After Garma's bombshell revelations, human rights lawyers are urging President Marcos to submit Garma's testimony to the International Criminal Court. Attorney Cristina Conti, who's an ICC-accredited assistant to counsel, said Garma's testimony establishes a pattern in all the killings and that the government should submit the Quadco material to the ICC prosecution to be included in their case buildup on crimes against humanity committed in the Philippines. The Marcos administration has repeatedly insisted they will not cooperate with the ICC, but that they're also preparing for all scenarios, including if the court were to order the arrest of Duterte. When asked for a reaction to the Garma expose, all Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin would say was that there will be no returning to the ICC fold. In a Viber message to reporters, he said the Philippines will not return to ICC. Based on this, the president is not expected to change his mind and now refer the Quadcom matter to the ICC.
All of these issues might have begun showing up on pre-election surveys. Let's take a closer look at two that came out today. First up is a Pulse Asia survey, which shows that 7 out of 10 Filipinos, or a whopping 73%, will not support political candidates next year who are pro-China either now or in the past. 5% say they are backing midterm bets aligned with China, while 23% are undecided. The survey was conducted between September 6 and 13 among 1,300 respondents, with a margin of error of ±3%. Think tank Strat-based ADR Institute, which commissioned the poll, believes there's a deep mistrust of candidates that associate with China. Issues now being connected to Beijing are repeated aggressions in the West Philippine Sea, offshore gaming, and supposed Chinese espionage worldwide. Then, there is the survey of Octa Research on political preferences of adult Filipinos. Between August 28 and September 2, 38% of the 1,200 total respondents say they identify with the Marcoses. Now, that's a slight increase of 2 points from June of this year. Filipinos who support the Dutertes, meantime, slid to 15% from 16%, although that is still within the margin of error. Opposition supporters are at 7%, independents at 26%, and the undecided at 14%. The survey has a margin of error of ±3% nationwide and ±6% in the regions. While changes are nominal and well within the margin of error, Octa President Ranjit Rai sees a trend emerging over recent months.
What we can see from quarter to quarter is an upward trend. For the Duterte brand, it's on a downward trend, but the changes have been slight from second to the third quarter, just 1%. Ang amin argument dito is that for 3 quarters, for basically 2 straight quarters, pababa yung numbers. Now, while hindi nag-improve, at when you look at the granular level, significant yung mga changes sa lalo na Class E. So one can argue that it has not improved. So in our view, it's in a downward trend.
Well, speaking of surveys, our first guest tonight is comfortably in the top 12 so far for senatorial preferences, at least according to the latest numbers by Pulse Asia. Let's welcome back to the big story, re-election as Senator Amy Marcos. Good evening, Senator. Thanks for making time for us again. I think you might be on mute, Senator Amy. Sen, I think you're on mute.
Hello.
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hi. Good evening to all the ladies.
Good evening.
How are
Good
you this
evening.
evening? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. We're
Indeed.
also very nicely color coordinated. Sen, before we tackle your candidacy, I wonder if we could ask you about the issues of the day first, beginning with the Quadcom hearings on EJK. As you know, big news broke over the weekend over Regina Garma's testimony, and now Senator Bongo is saying that he would be willing to file a resolution in Senate to also have a parallel investigation into the war on drugs in Senate. What do you think about that?
Yes, let me just say that while I have utmost respect for my colleagues in Congress, the reality is I have this sense that the investigations undertaken are really perhaps not in aid of legislation. Kasi marami akong naririnig ng mga investigasyon kung minsan, hindi ko alam kung sa Senado o sa Kongreso, hindi ko alam kung saan patungo. In theory, we only conduct investigations in aid of legislation. Wala naman ako nakikitang maklaro na legislation. Para sa akin, imbes na magkaroon ng katakot-takot na investigasyon na hindi naman mauuwi sa kaso, bakit hindi na lang idiretso natin sa korte na imbestigahan yan? And have the professional investigators, those tasked with that, from CIDG to NBI to the rest of our investigative forces, to look it up and definitely bring it to court, unlike what's going on now, which is sometimes a spectacle, sadly enough. There is very valuable testimony deriving from both houses of Congress, no doubt, but I think we should not overstep our bounds and rather turn over to the judiciary their role as the courts to judge and determine guilt.
In short, you for one don't think a Senate investigation is going to be necessary?
Well, kung gusto ni na Senator Bato at si Senator Go, ang hirap kasi kapag nag-iimbestiga, talagang ako, ang una kong tinitignan is there really a law that will change all this? But if there isn't, and it's only the facts of the case that we are determined to unravel, or perhaps worse, that we are trying to lynch mob someone, I think perhaps it's best brought to the wisdom of the courts.
If not in aid of legislation, Sen, what do you think the motive is for conducting
Well, there's
all these?
always the usual joke that it's in aid of re-election. So I'd rather stay away from that sort of discussion. And I prefer to confine myself to the limits of legislation, of lawmaking, of undertaking the audits and similar concerns with the budget, because it's budget season, and certainly endowing our countrymen with what they actually need, which is more support for the burgeoning cost of living and commodities.
Senator, we just wanted to get your reaction to the piece of news that we had prior to having you, which was the recent Okta survey that says that the Marcoses or the pro-Marcos supporters are up 2% from the second quarter, while the pro-Duterte supporters are lower by 1%. Medyo pasok pa rin siya sa margin of error. But how do you feel that political affiliation is now down to your two families, the Marcoses and the Dutertes? And even analysts say that the midterms will be a determinant kung gaano kalakas ang Marcos brand, syempre yung mga umaalyado po dun sa inyong pamilya.
Alam niyo, nakakatawa nga paano ba tinatanong yun? Kung pro isa, pro o kontra sa isa, hindi naman tumatakbo yung isa laban sa isa. Napakalabo. Para sa akin, hindi ako masyadong naniniwala, hindi ako nagtitiwala dyan, higit sa lahat, dahil ayokong pinagsasabong ang dalawang pamilya, ang dalawang partido, pinaghahati-hati ang Pilipinas. I really do not like this divisiveness, this polarization. It's not healthy. Is it the solid north versus the solid south? We're all Filipinos and we have serious problems. Higit sa lahat, itong mga binubuli o kinukuyog, palibasa wala na sa posisyon. Sa palagay ko, tiniis na namin yan. For 36 years, kami yun. Kami yung parating binubuli at kinukuyog. Sa lahat ng ayokong mangyari, gawin sa ibang pamilya, palibasa bumaba na sila sa posisyon.
Is that the reason, Senator Amy, kung bakit hindi kayo sumama doon sa launch nung senatorial slate of the ruling party? And you have said that you're going to stay independent. Or was it true na, as President BBM said, na busy ka lang daw po that day?
No, I made it very clear. I had a proper statement saying that I would be independent and wouldn't join the alliance simply because I think the acrimony, the bitterness, the anger involved in any election is not something I'd like to get involved in. There's already enough of that right now in the country. Ayokong pumanig sa isa laban sa kabila. Ayokong nakikipag-away. At ang gusto ko, makatawid. I'd like to be able to cross the line, to be able to talk to all factions, to all families, to all parties, and that way, finally be able to work. Hindi naman tayo panig na lamang ako sa sambayan ng Pilipino at hindi na sa isang alyansa, labang sa kabilang alyansa, nalaban pa sa iilang alyansa. Wag na lang ganon.
And how will that affect your campaign for the midterm elections, no?
I'm not certain. I haven't figured that part out yet. So far, hindi pa naman kampanya. So, ang pinupuntahan ko, yung mga barkada nating mga local government. Matagal kasi akong gobernador, marami akong kaibigan. Ayun, pumupunta ako. Ngayon, for example, it's Cooperative Month. So, all the co-ops are actually celebrating, and being the chairperson of cooperatives in the Senate, nakukumbida naman ako. Masaya naman ako pumunta kasi barkadahan, masaya. So far, ganon. As to the campaign proper, I haven't seen exactly what's going to be done, and I have to figure that one out yet.
Okay. Senator, there's been talk that it was actually you who brought your brother together with the Vice President prior to the elections. Pero sabi ni PBBM is, I always thought we were friends, but I think I may have been deceived. Kasi sinabi nga ni VP Sara na she was never friends with PBBM and kayo daw po ang magkaibigan. Pero bakit po sabi ni PBBM, maybe I was deceived?
I have no idea. You have to ask him. But certainly, sinabi na ni Inday Sara na hindi nga sila magkakilala noong 2021. Ako nagpakilala kasi kilala ko na siya, na-meet ko na siya noon pa. At sabi ko, tatakbo ka ba? Dahil maraming pumipila noon para maging Vice President. Vice President lamang, hindi naman inakala na magiging President. Pagkat kung naaalala ninyo, Vice President Sara at that point as Mayor of Davao was way, way ahead of any other candidate for President in 2021. And it would have been a complete walkover for her, but she chose not to run.
Sen, I wonder if you've had a chance to talk to your brother about You choosing to run as an independent?
I think it came from him, sort of. Sabi niya, paano yan? Mamaya, hindi tayo magka-pareho. Baka banatan ako sa entablado. Sabi ko, hindi naman ako bumabanat sa entablado. And it's no secret. I've made it very well known that in many, many cases, I'm not in agreement with certain of the administration's policies. Palagay ko, bilang manang, sino pa magsasabi ng totoo kung hindi yung manang mo? Kaya, nag-aalala siya, baka daw magkaganon. Sabi ko, hindi naman ako bumabanat sa'yo. Yung policy nga lang, kapag mali, o yung isang opisyal, kapag mali, obligado akong magsalita, trabaho ko yan eh. Pero nung umuwi ako, naisip ko, paano kung baliktad naman? Yung mga importante sa akin, yung mga mahal ko rin, babanatan ng lubos-lubusan. Baka hindi ko rin matiis at magre-react ako. Mas maigi na umiwas sa ganung usapin. We know how nasty elections can be. And it's very, very important for me that I should remain with a working relationship for all parties involved. That's the only way I think I can serve the Filipino people.
And having said,
so to be clear, it was his idea that you run as an independent. Because nga,
no,
you don't
it's
agree.
not his, no. I think you're misinterpreting. I think what I said was that he asked if I was going to publicly disagree with him on the stage and so on. And I said, of course, I don't do that. But on the other hand, what if some of the other candidates, other officials start attacking people who are really, really important to me or policies that are very important and strongly held by me for a long duration of time? Mahirapan din ako. So mas maigi na umiwas at maging independent.
would that one of those
It
be...
didn't come from him.
Yeah.
The question simply was that,
Right, okay.
paano? Sabi ko, maiipit ako nito, hindi na maganda yan.
Yeah.
And having said that, Senator Amy, how is your friendship with VP Sara through the breakup, a much publicized breakup of the UNIT team? Are you still in touch? Or do you still have each other's backs?
Of course. I'm very much in touch with all of them. Ang totoo, kaibigan naman natin ang mga Duterte. Para sa akin, talagang may utang na loob pa rin ako. Linibing yung tatay ko at tinulungan ako maging senador. Tinatanaw ko yung utang na loob at ako'y nahihirapan sa mga panahong ito na talagang nagkakatunggali. Kung minsan, hindi dahil sa tunay na alitan, kundi minsan ang pakiramdam ko talagang maraming nasa paligid na talagang nang pupugon, sabi nga sa Bisaya. Kaya lang, I think that kung may kaibigan kang dalawa na hindi nagkakaintindihan, hindi nagkakaunawaan, gagawin mo ba yun na pag-aawayin mo sila? Siyempre, mag-iintay ka ng panahon na sana mabuksan din ang pag-uusap nila muli at magkaunawaan at bumalik ang pagkakaibigan.
So, may
Para din naman ganun At ganyan ako sa lahat ng bagay. Higit sa lahat, sa lokal. Kung iisipin natin, the administration alliance involves 5 parties and just going down to the local level, to the municipal level, in many, many cases, those 5 parties are going head-to-head for governor, for mayor, and for congressman. So it's very, very difficult, particularly in the solid north, where everyone is really close and very, very long-standing family friends.
Babalikan ko lang po yung hearing, yung ito expose nga po ni dating Police Colonel Regina Garma. I mean,
I'm not the authority there. Hindi ako nakinig.
hindi po kayo nakinig.
I was actually conducting a hearing on the DSWD and many allegations that were made about the favoritism in providing ayuda. Para sa akin, ang ayuda ay dapat ibigay sa mahihirap, hindi sa politikong malakas.
That's what I wanted to ask you also, Sen Amy, no? It is budget season, as you mentioned earlier.
Tama. So, nakatutok ako sa budget. Kung mapapansin ninyo, absent ako sa mga investigasyon kapag hindi ako naniniwala, may tutumbukin na bagong batas. Kung wala namang batas na uuwian, parang feeling ko, diretso na tayo sa korte, wag nang magdadaldalan dito at wala namang mauuwian na kaso to.
Yun nga po kasi po, Sen, no? Tapusin ko lang. Yung nagyari po kasi sa 2024 for budget, no, may mga lumalabas, napakaraming insertion, ganito, ganyan. Kayo po ba sa Senado, and particularly you in your office, binabantayan niyo po ba na hindi maulit itong mga insertions after na nung
Oo,
BICAM?
masama ang loob ko dyan eh. Kasi ang dalawa kong hawak, yung COMELEC budget at saka yung DSWD budget, yung dalawang linapastangan dun sa BICAM last year. Ang sama-sama ng loob ko kasi nagulat na lang ako, lahat nagulanta na biglaan na 12 billion ang dinagdag para sa Chacha, sa PI, doon sa COMELEC budget. Wala naman silang hinihingi na ganun. Nagulat na lang kami lahat, and I believe DSWD was the same, where suddenly there was an ACAP project no one had ever heard of, and which they had to formulate guidelines for only in February or March this year, because nobody had actually heard of ACAP at all, but it had a tag of 26 billion. Mabigat-bigat yun, kasi parang, ano ba, nalusutan ba tayo? Ano ba nangyari? So, ganun yun eh. There's a great deal of inter-chamber courtesy. And we tend to be very easy on the other chambers' additions, insertions, initiatives. But perhaps it's better that we start coordinating more tightly this year so that these shocks are prevented.
Senator, speaking of the budget, I just wonder if you agree with the 700 million budget given to the Office of the Vice President by the lower house, or will you push for a higher budget at the Senate for VP Sara?
At this point in time, we haven't heard the budget of the Vice President. I just heard it very briefly during the subcommittee hearing. We'll have to hear it in the plenary. And of course, it's always subject to the greater number of senators. Ano? So, kailangan pag-usapan muna at tignan kung ano talaga ang karapat-dapat. Kanina, naungkat dahil DSWD budget, yung investigasyon, because the DSWD promised to investigate the allegations made that the requests for ayuda and other social protection from the DSWD, from the OVP, were always turned down. So there was a hint of some level of politicking. A congressman also, Congressman Olaso from Zamboanga, turned up and said that he was humiliated because his AIX was suddenly held back. These same complaints have been heard over the past, and we urged the Secretary, quite above and beyond the usual denials, to prove that in fact this hasn't occurred.
Senator, sabi nga po nila, no, yung AIX na nabanggit ninyo, yan daw po yung bagong pork barrel. What do you have to say to that? Because it's supposed to be an agency fund, pero nahahaluan ng politika, nadidikitan ng
kasi ng mga local, mga LGU.
I mean, do you agree with that? What do you have to say?
Palagay ko yung LGU nga lugi eh. I think that's not quite right. Ang nangyayari, talagang mas malalaking politiko ang nakikialam. Yun ang problema talaga.
What do you mean by that, Sen?
Yung LGU nga, tumutulong eh. Kasi there are very, very few DSWD employees, and they don't have the capacity to go down to the barangays, whereas the barangays really help them try and figure out who the genuinely poor and needy are. Siyempre, alam natin, dinideny ng DSWD yan, pero marami na kaming nakausap ng mga regional director at iba pa na talagang umaangal.
Actually, it was VP Sara herself who said that, who claimed that the budget was being politicized, right?
Yes, precisely. I think she has complained about that.
She claimed,
Senators Ko and Bato de la Rosa, myself, have all complained about that. But, I think similar complaints have been made by congressmen and many, many others.
But Sen, so she said that the budget is being manipulated. But Sen, on the other hand, your brother, the president, has himself said he doesn't think that's what's happening. He said that, you know, every single government agency just has to undergo that level of scrutiny for their budget. Nothing is being politicized here. Where does that leave you?
Well, my brother has to give them the benefit of the doubt. He is, after all, the president. But you and I know that there is no perfect administration, and it is our duty, both as elected officials and as media persons, to report those mistakes, those errors, those injustices.
Okay, lastly, Sen Aimee, we asked this question of every re-election as well, pretty much everyone who filed the COC. Why do you want another term in Senate? What's going to be your platform this time?
Oh, my platform remains the same all the time. Nabitin kami. We are the senators who got struck with COVID for 2.5 years. So I started already with my agrarian reform program. Nabigyan na ng titulo ang karamihan ng mga magsasaka. Nabura na yung utang nila. Libre na sila. Na-condone na yung mga utang nila. But as we know well, the title's only as good as a piece of paper if there's no backup to it. So they still are so impoverished. They still have no mechanization. They still have no subsidies for gasoline that has just skyrocketed, and for fertilizer and so on. So that's the second part of the program. The other thing, of course, is that as the head of social justice, I've managed to push forth the expansion of the Centenarians Act and give them their social stipends for our elderly. Pero kulang pa rin because our PWD, particularly those who are severely challenged, get no help at all from the government. Kawawa naman sila at yung kanilang pamilya. Samantalang yung mga PWD na ganadong-ganado magtrabaho, walang pagkakataon magtrabaho. Ganon din yung solo parents. So there's still a great deal of work to be done. Bitin ang aking term bilang senador.
On your agriculture platform, Sen, what's the plan to curb smuggling and hoarding, which, as we both know, is an age-old issue?
Yes, I think that's very, very important. Unfortunately, today you can't tell. Is it the Bureau of Customs? Is it a legal importer? Is it a smuggler? Parang karambola na sila. We need to understand that. But most of all this diminution in tariff and excise tax has not resulted in cheaper prices, and instead has really disadvantaged our local farmers. Kawawa ang ating mga magsasaka, tulungan natin. Hindi lang yung konting limos na binibigay pa minsan-minsan, kundi siguro bigyan natin ng sahod, karampatang sahod para madoble yung income. There's an alarming statistic that's come out that in fact there is an exodus from our countryside. Wala nang gustong magtanim. Kanervyos nga. So at the rate we're going, with the average farmer being 58 years old, it's estimated by 2030 we will be importing everything we eat.
Yeah.
That is a really dismal and dangerous proposition.
Yeah. Well, in fact, there was news yesterday that we're the world's biggest importer of rice still.
Yes.
This coming
Yes, we
year.
have been for several years,
Yeah.
and
That hasn't changed.
That's unbelievable to me. It's totally shocking because we know that the shortfall of local rice is very small. It started at 3%, it's now about 15%. Bakit tayo naging biggest? Nakakapagtaka. Samantalang bundok-bundok ng palay at ng bigas ay nananatili sa South Cotabato, na iiwan pa rin sa Nueva Ecija. Bakit hindi yun muna ang bilhin ng NFA at ng DA at wag import na lang ng import lagi? Kawawa naman ang ating mga magsasaka. Unahin ng Pilipino.
Well, yeah.
Pinapayaman natin ang Vietnamese, ang Thai, pati ang Indian. Eh bakit yung Pilipinong magsasaka hindi unahin for a change?
Well, to be fair to the admin, they're just trying to bring the prices down in the short term, right? Because wala pa po yung
The
productivity.
question arises though, they brought excise taxes, it was at 50%, and I recall the prices at that point were 38 pesos. We brought down the 50% to 35%. The prices went up to 48 pesos. We're now at 15% excise tax, and the prices have gone to 60, 62 pesos. Hindi pa bumababa. Eh, nakukulitan na yata si Secretary Laurel sa akin kasi sabi niya, August babagsak na yan. Came and went, September naman daw, ngayon October. Nako talaga naman, sana bumagsak ang presyo, pero hindi pa rin yan makatotohan ang presyo. Hindi siya sustainable at alam naman natin pag walang na-collect ang taripa, wala nang maibabalik sa ating mga farmers. Because the tariffs collected for imported rice also go to mechanization and fertilizer and inbred rice and so on for our local farmers. So there's a quid pro quo to all this.
Yeah, so your point being the tariffs haven't helped at all. We're going to have to leave that there.
Yes, I think that's the same case with the pork. If you notice, andyan pa rin ang presyo ng liempo pagkataas-taas at yung manok. So it's not an automatic, immediate thing. In fact, the traders and importers take advantage of the very low tariffs.
Yeah. We're going to have to leave that there for tonight. We hope to have you back on the show to talk about other issues. That was re-election as Senator Amy Marcos.
Up next, we'll be speaking with musician and lawyer Jimmy Bondoc, who is seeking a seat in the Senate under PDP Laban. That and more when the big story returns. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News. A total of 183 Senate vets filed their certificates of candidacy for the 2025 elections. Among those seeking a seat in the Senate is musician and lawyer Jimmy Bondoc, who will be running under PDP Laban. And he joins us now live in the studio. Good evening, attorney. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be here. You know, I was just watching some of your promo ads, and I must say you have a beautiful show and it's very comprehensive. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Sabihin ko pa lang nga, attorney, election na talaga.
Let me be the one to start this conversation. Wait, just, you know, to on the lighter side before we get into your candidacy. Sure. We've always known you as Jimmy Bondoc, the singer. And now you're a lawyer. Tell us all about that. What made you decide to study law? And have you always wanted to go into politics?
Well, you know, the short answer is my whole life talagang dalawa yung dalawa yung puso ko ay ika nga. One has always been more towards the medyo academe na side. I am from the Ateneo. I was always in the honors class. I hope that's not pompous.
A-boy daw to, A-boy.
Well, yes, but you know, it doesn't. Well, anyway. But I've always been an artist also. I was in theater and all that. But I was always the class president and all that. So, naglalaban yan. Naglalaban talaga yan. Hanggang sa pag-graduate ko, naglalaban yan. Papasok na ba ako sa trabaho? O kakanta na ba ako? But it was always slightly leaning towards the arts.
But did you take up law because you knew there was a possibility of you running for office?
No.
Can I interject? Because I saw actually an interview. After you passed the bar, there was an interview from ABS-CBN, I think. And you said that because you had been appointed to PAGCOR and you served there under different positions, I believe, under the Duterte administration, it opened your eyes and it made you want to go into public service. Can you tell us about that direction, kumbaga, ng iyong career?
Opo. Alam niyo po kasi when you enter real public service, yung plantilla, no? Kasi later na lang ako naging director eh. But I was really a, kumbaga, working man. No? Utusan talaga ako doon. You will see that government really runs on laws. As in, it really runs on laws. Procurement, for example, and all that. And somewhere along the way, I was really just challenged to be better, to do better. Kasi parang feeling ko, hindi nag-a-apply dito yung mga natutunan ko sa pribadong sektor. I mean, the normal logic that you think would apply, like being efficient, you know, SWOT analysis and all that. Optimizing and all that, streamlining, yeah, of course, all fantastic ideas. Pero once you're confronted with the laws, biglang, uy, bawal pala yun. And I just didn't want that impeding my intentions of being of service.
Sorry, we're short on time, so I'm going to go straight into the hard questions. Bring up now the fact that you've been on the board of PAGCOR since September 2021, which means you were there during the heyday of the Pogos, right? So,
Yes.
so
Actually, at that time, yun yung medyo heavily challenged na yung Pogos at that
but
time.
at that time, also, President Duterte was still defending Pogos. In fact, we remember a quote from him wherein he said, hindi naman masama, so might as well tax them. Now that all of these issues with Pogos have come to light, do you regret supporting Pogos? Because sitting on the board of PAGCOR, you had the power to do something then, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. Kasi alam nyo yung Pogo, as I was saying in my Comelec interview, I'll say the same thing, masalimuot talaga yan. And you can't just polarize it parang either it's evil or it's not. It really depends on the climate, no? Yung sitwasyon. Will it favor the country to allow this now or not? And that's an executive and legislative prerogative talaga, no? You know, the quick answer is, meron talagang sitwasyon na mas magandang pairalin yan because una sa lahat, ang pera na umiiral dyan na yung nagsusugal are foreign. Hindi yan dito nangyayari. Sa kabilang banda naman, nagkakaroon ng social friction because ini-import natin yung mga call center, ika nga. So, you balance that, no? Sulit ba yung kinita natin? Because a lot of the contributions of PAGCOR to the social fund at that time really came from Pogos. It kind of really helped save us, no? Pero ngayon, sa klima ngayon, walang pandemic, hindi kailangan ng mga sobrang ganong klaseng kita, maybe they saw it wiser to not operate it. Personally, and I will not evade, I'll give you my personal opinion. Personally sa akin, kung maayos yung patakbo niyan, it's very powerful. Just make sure that walang nagsusugal dito sa Pilipinas, tsaka walang social friction, meaning maybe we can isolate them in good communities.
But that's not the plain issue here. There's also
All the criminal
crimes, all the
activities
crimes,
linked to them.
Prostitution, the
done
torture,
inside those
human
Pogo hubs.
trafficking.
And also the threats to national security.
Yes.
Nasabi nyo noon sa isang statement na wala naman kayong report ng espionage, but ngayon nakikita natin sa hearings na mayroon tayong kaso na ni Alice Go, meron tayong Cassandra Ong, and all the linkages from the Pogos to these criminal syndicates.
My question to you guys in earnest is, whether these are regulated or not, do you think these crimes would persist? That's my question, no? And it's a real question. I think dapat aralin siguro ng Nika or something. Kasi nga, hindi natin alam kung mas lumalala pa siya pag hindi regulated. Because it's there. Pardon the word na, for example, porn. No? Very, ano yan, no? We can't even stop porn. No? Pero it's there. No, am I saying we should regulate it? Ang hirap. May mga simbahan issues, morality issues.
But it's not a criminal activity.
Well, yeah, but its effects are the same, no? It erodes society.
You having a purview of, from PAGCOR, do you think this administration will be able to stamp out, ban Pogos completely? Or will they just, probably fall
Be
under
illegal,
a different
yeah.
name? Or will they reappear in some other...
It really depends on political will, and alam nyo, kaya naman i-stamp out kahit ano kung tutukan talaga eh. But they have so many other things to focus on. And the internet is so pervasive. Kaya ba talaga natin itigil ang isang bagay lamang sa internet? I'm not sure. But that doesn't mean I'm saying na, sige, illegal, gawin nyo na lang legal, i-regulate na lang natin. Hindi ko rin naman sinasabi yun. Like I said, it's a very executive and legislative prerogative. But they have to weigh everything. Pero kung magiging perfect ba yan? Never, right? Never, because it's just there. The internet is just there.
Attorney, why the Senate? A lot of celebrities, influencers, artists who try their hand at politics usually go for a lesser role. Why the Senate agad?
Many reasons, but the first was, ang una talaga niyan, magpa-party list dapat ako. I do have a party, it's a legitimate party, it's called Boses, it's for entablado at sining, yun yung ES doon sa Boses. But when I was confronted with the former president, tinanong niya, saan ka tatakbo? Sabi ko, party list po. Hindi, pero anong gusto mo? Saan mo talaga gusto? Sa Senate po. I mean, you know, I had to be, parang he reached into my brain and asked me for an earnest answer.
When was that? I'm curious because I was just thinking kung ano yung process. Diba? Before ka nag-file ng COC for Senate na.
Yeah, a few months ago. A few months ago, I was in Davao. Sabi ko, ano yung gusto mo? Sabi ko, sa Senate po. And it's true. But also, I think, I know my chances, hindi ako ilusyonado na tao. But if there were a house that I would have a better chance of getting into, I think it's the Senate. It requires more votes, but it's not a single vote. Plus, nagsisiksika na sa party list. I really don't think, marami na
Next
step doon
question, attorney. Bakit PDP laban?
Oh, yeah.
Dadagdag ko doon, sinabi mo gusto mong patibayin ang best of the best Duterte principles.
Yes.
Which are?
Well, anti-corruption is really a big thing for me. Marami po tayong kritisismo laban sa dating Pangulo. But yung anti-corruption stance niya was very evident and very felt sa aming mga nasa ahensya. Sa labas po, alam ko naman, yung balita, alam ko naman lahat ng mga pinag-uusapan sa balita. Pero kasi nandun ako no? Nandun ako at I was also at the top position ng direktor ako ng isang nagre-regula ng sugal. No? At ni minsan po, walang hiningi sa amin na alanganin yung Pangulo. And that is first-hand knowledge. Ako yun Hindi ko yun kayang, I cannot make you believe that. I cannot make your viewers believe that. But I believe that. Walang hiningi sa amin, walang alanganin, hindi kami nakasuhan. We were able to get our clearances from the Ombudsman very quickly.
But what about his drug war? Do you also align with his principles in the drug war?
Well, yes. The short answer is yes. It wasn't perfect because there are always the scalawags and all that. And again, I know it's a long, protracted discussion. But yes. And I think the surveys also show that the Philippines really needed that kind of strong hand. No? Now, controversial, yes, absolutely. Pero again, first hand tayo pumunta. No? Sa neighborhood namin, nawala talaga yung mga buwisit. No? Kasi buwisit talaga That's the word for it
Saan po ba kayo?
Sa Cubao po ako. And now, to be quite frank, some of them are back. No? So, you know, these are real things.
Because
No?
a lot of people, Jimmy, would say that it's maybe not the most popular choice for your maiden run for the Senate to join PDP laban.
But so it was, so I'll ask the question straight now. There's speculation that you were asked to run for under PDP laban, specifically because they need the numbers in Senate with the specter of impeachment hanging over Vice President Sara. Is there any truth to that?
There have been absolutely no talks about that. If those are their intentions, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a political matter. I don't think it's illegal. But wala pong ganong usapan. It was more of me expressing, saan mo ba gusto? Sinagot ko sa Senate po.
Did you consider joining another party or was this the only option for you?
No. This was, the only option was this, or of course to go independent. But my friendship with Dutertes are not as deep as people think. Oh no, it's very deep, but it's not politically deep. No, it's personally. We have a kinship. No,
How did you end up becoming friends on the personal level?
It was that song. It was I wrote a song, which is why siguro po kung mangyari po yung hindi ka panipaniwala na ako'y makapasok sa Senado, it would be such a great story, to be honest. Just because I really started with a belief na sabi ko, okay, itong taon to, susuportahan ko to. Gumawa ako ng kanta, nahanap nila ako, nilipad nila ako sa Davao, naging magkaibigan kami, binago ko yung buhay ko, at ngayon, kung makapasok man ako, it would be, what an upset, right? But I'm not doing it for that. It's just that the artist in me sees that as a great story.
So to be clear, it was former President Duterte who asked you to run under PDP laban, just to set the record straight.
No, he asked me what I wanted. And I said, gusto ko po mag-Senate under PDP.
Attorney, so
it was more of him acceding to it.
So at what point did you join PDP?
Oh, when they announced it, about a week before that. It was quick kasi alam niyo naman sila kung minsan medyo...
Kaya nga, so 1 week before they announced it was the time that you joined PDP. So you're a very new member.
No, I had been a member. I had been a member, but not
But to be on the slate.
to be on the slate.
Attorney, pardon me, but I have to ask this, and I know this is an issue that has long passed. In 2016, 2020, you nag-post kayo, sabi nyo, about ABS-CBN. I'm so excited to see the biggest TV network close down. This company is a snake pit, where success is based on politics and sexual favor. I'm eagerly awaiting your demise. I know how this sounds, etc., etc. You spoke against or for the shutdown of the ABS-CBN network. And, 3 years later, 4 years later, seeing everything happening, even with SMNI, do you still stand for that statement, for what you said back in 2020?
I'm honest enough to admit that those words were strongly worded, that post was strongly worded because of personal reasons that I would, if you would allow me to not say.
So a bad experience, basically.
Bad experience.
Personal bad experience.
Yes.
Okay.
But on the other hand, I was aware of what that statement would do, that it would bring light onto something that at that time was, iniquitous. Pero, now I'm just glad to hear that they're doing better. Tas yung mga nawala ng trabaho, may mga trabaho na, and I'm not a monster, no? I did not want jobs lost or whatever. It's just that I want everyone to follow the rules. Everyone should follow the rules.
What rule do you think they broke?
Well, again, those are the personal things that
But
I was saying.
wasn't that also politically motivated? I mean, what happened to ABS-CBN? What is happening now to SMNI? Doesn't Congress have too much power over, the granting of franchises? In this instance, it can be. I mean, on one end, it can probably bring justice. On the other hand, it can be abused. The power could be abused.
Yeah. Well, let's go legal, no? Because franchise is a franchise. It's a grant. It's the prerogative of the legislature. So you can't question it. It's not a contract. That's what they teach in law school. Magkaiba naman yan. Walang breach of franchise, may breach of contract. So kung yun ang gusto ng legislatura, then okay. No? But as far as
doesn't that send a precedent? Isn't that a precedent for the same thing to happen to other networks? Na pag hindi nagustuhan ng administrasyon o nakaupo, yung sinasabi mo, i-shut down na lang natin yan.
Well, that's a franchise, but that's not the only way to express your views, especially in this digital age, right? In fact, some people do better online than on the diminishing airwave power, no? So para sa akin, hindi rin. But final point is, I think this is the reason why we should really choose our elected officials well. Diba? Kasi talagang piliin natin kung sino yung bibigyan nyo ng kapangyarihan na mamigay ng prangkisa.
And what platform are you strongly running on? Top 3?
I've always been anti-corruption. I think it should be institutionalized. Kasi marami nalilito sa word na institutionalized, no? But kasi yung mga anti-corruption natin ng mga commission are by executive order. Right. Kailangan Republic Act. Gumawa tayo ng independent talaga.
All lawmakers, I mean, that's a mouthful. All lawmakers, before they get elected, all say they're anti-corruption anyway, right? They all say they're anti-poor. But let's tweak the question a little bit. You're a lawyer now. What are your top legislative priority in Senate once you get?
Yeah, that's one, because I think there has to be a body.
What law specifically?
Yeah, there has to be a body, creation of a body through a Republic Act, hindi lang executive order, that cannot be instantly basta repealed lang by any batch kasi every 3 years nagbabago yan, ano? It should have fiscal autonomy para talaga nakakapag-imbestiga siya. Yung PACC, magaling yon, pero pwedeng hindi sila mag-appoint doon, hindi nagagana yon. Tapos it's merely recommendatory. Ito, dapat prosecutorial talaga, na kaya, talagang batas talaga. Na mahirap basta-basta i-repeal kasi may fiscal autonomy. That's number one.
Okay.
No?
Second bill?
Second, well, if I were to choose, I have very specific proposals sa health. Marami nang nagte-take care sa health. Pero ako particularly, yung hospital detention. Kasi meron talaga mga nakukulong dahil di makapagbayad.
Right.
And there is...
So you're gonna repeal that?
No, actually amend it. RA 9439, there's something really unconstitutional with it. Pero iso-surprise ko na lang sila. I don't want them to see me coming.
Okay.
And the third is for music.
What about music?
Well, generally encourage treaties talaga so that we can use, everyone uses the K-pop analogy, right? But totoo yun eh. Totoo yun eh. It's really government-backed. And we can really use it.
It needs to be legislated, the music?
Yes, absolutely.
You can legislate that? I mean, what kind of treaties?
Para malaanan ng pondo?
No, you can laanan ng pondo and to create a commission. I know there's NCCA and all that, but I think the musikero community is unique. It has its own power, its own needs. No?
Okay.
So, ganun po.
Attorney, we're so sorry, but we've run out of time.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you to your viewers. God bless everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. That was senatorial aspirant Attorney Jimmy Bondoc, I should say.
We're going to have to pause for another very quick break, but right after that, just how much more will fuel cost starting tomorrow? We'll give you the rundown when we return. Keep it here on Big Story.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story on One News.
Before we go, here is our big picture for tonight, and it's not good news. Why are you guys making me read the bad news? Well, to all motorists, time to fill up your gas tanks before fuel prices go up again between midnight and 6 a.m. tomorrow, and it's quite a hefty increase per liter, with gasoline standing to gain 2 pesos and 65 centavos per liter, diesel 2 pesos and 70 centavos a liter, and that means if you have a 40-liter tank, expect to shell out 100 pesos more. Now, this will be the 4th straight week of oil price hikes since September 16 due to tensions in the Middle East and the weak peso. So yeah, I was Eric, our executive producer, and I were debating, is it at 12 or at 6? Oh, it's supposed to be at 6 a.m. But sometimes they do it after midnight.
Mas maganda ngayon na.
Mas maganda bago mag-12 para wala nang laban. And hindi kayo pwede.
Mondays all the time.
Tuesdays all the time. Mondays your last chance all the time. So on that note and on that tip and that bit of not so great news, that's it for the big story tonight.
It is great news. We're warning them. The storm that is about to come. Just like we do here with the Filipino elections.
There's a bit of time to guess up.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.